Take a trip back to the electric 1960s, a decade where American horsepower went absolutely feral, and style was as important as speed. Before smog gear, insurance crackdowns, and the fun police really tightened the screws, Detroit was building cars that looked like they were doing 100 mph, sitting still. From true monsters of the road to embarrassing letdowns wearing legendary badges, we're about to break down 20 of the best and worst muscle cars of the 60s, including the icons everyone knows: Mustang, Camaro, GTO, Charger, Chevelle, Roadrunner, and a few sleepers most people forget. 10 worst muscle cars from the 1960s. Salbinon Port, Bubuistan, in Shindridis Sazandi Sar, Juan, Mining Dobison of Branston Manzanda, Kulraincon Mining Green 610, Fraud and Nitty Scandan Ford Mustang, base 6-cylinder. Let's start with the one that hurt people's feelings the most, because the Mustang name instantly became synonymous with speed, even when the car you actually bought was anything but. The base Mustang looked like a fighter, but under the hood, you could end up with a humble 6-cylinder that made the car feel more like a stylish commuter than a pony car legend. You'd hit the gas expecting that classic Mustang punch, and instead, you got a polite suggestion. The Mustang's image was born in the 60s, but the base versions were the first lesson in a harsh truth. A great body doesn't guarantee a great car. 2. 1967, Chevrolet Camaro, base model. Same story, different badge. The Camaro arrived swinging, ready to scrap with the Mustang, except plenty of them rolled out with base engines that made all that aggressive styling feel like cosplay. From the outside it said, street brawler. From the driver's seat it said, oh, I'm trying my best. And that disconnect between looks and performance made the base 60s Camaro one of the biggest letdowns for anyone expecting instant muscle. 3. 1966 Dodge Charger with the small V8. The 1966 Charger looks like it should be illegal, long, sleek, menacing. But if you ended up with a smaller V8 instead of the big blocks people daydream about, the experience didn't match the threat level. It wasn't that the Charger was a bad platform, it was that too many buyers got the poster car without the poster power, and that gap is exactly how legends turn into regrets. 4. 1965 Chevrolet Chevelle Malibu SS, early SS confusion. This one is infamous for one reason. The badge didn't always mean what people thought it meant. In the mid-60s, you could end up with a Chevelle wearing performance vibes without the full muscle car heart enthusiasts imagine today. So you've got SS styling, SS marketing, and then you pop the hood and realize you bought the idea of muscle more than the real thing. For collectors now it's history. For buyers then, it was heartbreak with a nice paint job. 5. 1968 Plymouth Barracuda, base trim. The Barracuda is a legit name in muscle history, but the base trims in the late 60s could feel oddly restrained for a car that looked ready to hunt Camaros for sport. It wasn't a total flop. It was worse. It was a near miss, a car that could have been a terror but too often showed up to the fight under-equipped. 6. 1969 AMC Javelin with the economy engines. AMC absolutely deserves respect for swinging at the big three, but if you bought a Javelin expecting a giant killer, and ended up with the mild setups, you didn't get the legend, you got the compromise. The body was sharp, the attitude was there. The performance, depending on the spec, could be not. 7. 1966 Pontiac GTO, when optioned, wrong. Yes, the GTO is sacred, but here's the uncomfortable truth. Not every 60s GTO felt like the tire-melting myth people talk about today. If you ended up with a less aggressive setup, gearing, engine configuration, or the kind of options that prioritized comfort, your muscle car king could feel more like a strong cruiser than a street weapon. The name promised domination. Some builds delivered, others didn't. 8. 1967 Mercury Cougar, more catwalk than cage match. The Cougar was cool, no question, but it leaned more premium pony than raw-boned muscle, and plenty of buyers expected it to be a Mustang that hit harder. Instead, depending on the spec, it was smoother and heavier, feeling more swagger than savagery. If you wanted brutal, the Cougar sometimes felt like it showed up wearing cologne. 9. 1968 Oldsmobile 442, when weight and comfort took over. The 442 could be a monster, but it could also be a very comfortable, very heavy 60s car that didn't always feel as sharp as its reputation. When muscle cars started getting bigger, plushier, and more adult, some of them lost that lightweight, violent personality that made early 60s performance cars feel alive. In the wrong spec, it was more gentleman's express than street brawler. 10. 1969, Pontiac Firebird, base models living in the Camaro's shadow. The Firebird had the look, the stance, the attitude, and yet the base versions often felt like they were living in the Camaro's shadow. If you didn't get the right engine and performance equipment, it could feel like you bought a gorgeous suit and wore it to a jog. Do you agree with this list of disappointing 60s muscle cars? Drop your picks in the comments, because I already know somebody's about to defend a base model legend like it's family. 10 best muscle cars from the 1960s. 1. 1964 Pontiac GTO. If you want the moment the muscle car era truly caught fire, you start here. The 1964 GTO wasn't just fast, it was a statement. Big engine energy, instantly iconic, and it helped kick down the door for everything that followed. 2. 1967 Shelby GT500. This wasn't a Mustang with stickers, this was a Mustang with intent. The GT500 took the pony car formula and turned it into something meaner, louder, and more collectible with every passing decade. It's one of those cars that still feels like a threat today. 3. 1969 Chevrolet Camaro Z28. The Z28 is one of the most perfectly aimed punches of the decade. Built with performance in mind, tuned to feel sharp, and forever linked to the golden era of street and track dominance. This is the Camaro that makes people say, yeah, that one. 4. 1966 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 396. The Chevelle SS 396 is peak no-nonsense muscle. Brutal big block presence, clean proportions, and that perfect balance of everyday usability and street legend reputation. When people picture a classic muscle car, this is one of the shapes their brain pulls up. 5. 1969 Dodge Charger RT. The Charger RT is pure 60s menace. It looks like a villain's car in the best way, and when it's got the right big block setup, it drives like it looks. This is muscle car mythology on 4 wheels. 6. 1969 Plymouth Roadrunner. The Roadrunner came in with a simple mission: go fast for the money. No fancy excuses, no luxury touring nonsense, just straight up muscle value, and it became one of the most loved names in the entire era because of it. 7. 1968 Pontiac Firebird 400. When you step up into the serious Firebird specs, the car turns from pretty to problem. The 400-era Firebirds are some of the most satisfying driver's cars of the late 60s, and they've aged like a leather jacket. 8. 1969 Ford Mustang Boss 429. This is not a normal car. The Boss 429 exists because racing rules basically forced Ford to build a street version, and the result is one of the most mythical Mustangs ever. Rare, ridiculous, and permanently stamped into muscle car history. 9. 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona aerodynamics invaded the muscle car world, and the Daytona showed up looking like it came from the future. The wing, the nose, the NASCAR obsession. This thing is more than a car, it's a rolling headline. 10. 1968 Dodge Dart GTS 440. This is one of the greatest what even is that cars of the decade. A smaller body paired with outrageous big block energy, and it's the kind of machine that makes you laugh the first time you see it, until you realize it's dead serious. Among these legends, which 60s muscle car have you always dreamed of owning? Say it in the comments. I want to see what the crowd picks when it's 60s icons only. If you enjoyed this high-octane trip back in time, hit like, subscribe, and share it with the friend who thinks every old car is rare because it has chrome. We'll see you in the next one.